Hey, this is Will from Willbrat Design, and we're back with another tutorial. This time we're looking at this Touch ID graphic that I've created here in Figma. We're going to take it into After Effects and learn how to actually animate it, and then we're going to export it as a Lottie file, which is something that we can use directly in our code as a vector production-ready animated asset. So a few years ago, in fact 3 years ago, I created this Touch ID animation using LottieFiles, and I just wanted to share how I made it. So what we're going to be doing is going to this Figma file, which you will be able to find in the community. The link will be in the description below, and maybe you've already found it through the Figma community and you've actually found the video through the Figma file instead. But the structure of this file is it's broken down into the cover, obviously the landing page that we're on. Here we've got some useful links to my portfolio, my YouTube channel, my LinkedIn, and my Figma community profile. Then we have the tutorial itself, and I'll be adding to this. This might have changed by the time you're watching this video, such as there will be a link to the video here and here, and any other steps that I think might be useful. And then if we go to the Touch ID, if you don't want to actually animate it, I've created the graphics here that you can use straight away. So there are two graphics here. Even though they look identical, they're actually different. So the first one is this stroke one. And if we have a look at the vector elements below, we can see they're actually built with a stroke, and that stroke is of 6 pixels. If we look at the outlines, it's slightly different. We can see it's actually a filled shape. There's no stroke at all. And the benefit to the outlines one is that we can resize it to whatever size we want, and it will stay the same, just get bigger. Whereas if we do that with the stroke one, the stroke will remain the same and it won't resize very nicely, but we can do different things with the stroke itself. So to actually do this animation tutorial, we'll actually need to use the stroke version, and we'll learn why shortly. So if we head over to the tutorial, and we're already watching the video, so we can skip this step. There's a few things we need to do, and the first one is to install the Aeux Figma plugin. So if I just open that real quick, and that's just going to take us outside Figma, so there's that slight warning, but this will take us to the aeux.io page, and we need to install this Figma plugin. Now, it's slightly more complicated than installing other Figma plugins because it's still in development. So go through and follow this guide for the non-Googlers. It's pretty easy to do. We're just not going to cover that in this video. The next step you need to do is you actually need to install the plugin for After Effects as well. So if you haven't got After Effects yet, just head over to Creative Cloud, Adobe, and once you're on Adobe, you can go and find After Effects, which will probably be in their video section. There we go, Adobe After Effects. And if you've not used their free trial before, you can download it and you get a few days to try the software out, or you can subscribe to the Creative Cloud or just download this app and pay for this app separately. This is a paid app and you will need to use it for this tutorial. That is the one caveat of this. So you'll then need to install the Aeux plugin inside After Effects once you've got After Effects installed. Follow the same guide used for the Figma one. And then we'll also need the LottieFiles plugin, and you can find that on the LottieFiles.com website. And I provided a link for you here. So if you just head over here and let's jump there. So you can either go to LottieFiles.com and then go to design and then click this link here, or just go directly to this link provided. And you just want to either download it and install it using the ZXP, or you can do it via the Adobe Exchange. Either way, you'll end up with the same plugin, and you will need that for this tutorial. Okay, so now we've got everything set up ready to go, we can do step 4 and things start to get exciting. So I've got After Effects open already, so just make sure you open it. And I'm going to head back into my Figma file, and this Touch ID design is ready to go. I've already created it ready to go. But a few things to note is if you're selecting something that isn't in a frame, it needs to be inside a frame for you to actually send it. So let's open the plugin by right-clicking, going to plugins, and then we're going to development. Because it's still in development, it won't appear here with your other Figma plugins, it'll appear separately. As this plugin is still in development, there might be a few bugs, but I found it to work quite nicely. So just for argument's sake, I'm just going to duplicate this and remove that frame. So we've just got this vector. I'm going to select that and send selection to After Effects. And you'll see that it comes up with this little error saying layers must be inside of a frame. So I'll just delete all that. And here we go. We can see this is inside of a frame and we can send that. So we don't need any of these extra options. Just want to send it straight over. There we go. So that's pretty easy. We've now got every one of our vector layers inside of this folder, inside another folder. So that folder is actually the frame. And it shares the same name as the frame, and then it's created this composition which is based on the frame as well. So if I had a frame within a frame, we would actually have multiple compositions. But for this example, we've just got this single composition with all our vector files that actually match our vector files here. So if we rename these to something maybe more useful, that would be reflected here as well. So as we're going to have to manually edit every single one of these, there's a slight shortcut we're going to do, and that is we're going to create a control layer, and we're going to link each one of these to that control layer and try and save us some time. So there is a quicker way of doing this, and that is to use Illustrator rather than Figma. But I thought, as people are using Figma these days for design, I'd show you how to use it with Figma, and perhaps if there's time in another video, or at the end of this video, I'll show you how to do that in Illustrator. If I don't add that, and you want to see that, please leave a comment below and request it. It won't take me long to create a new video using Illustrator rather than Figma, so that's not a problem at all. Just let me know if you're interested. So I'm going to come down here, create a new shape layer. And the reason I'm doing it as a shape layer is there's, rather than a null object, if you're familiar with After Effects, you'll see why shortly. So I'm just going to create the shape layer, rename it control shape layer, so I know it's still a shape layer. And then inside there, I'm going to add the things we need to be reflected here. But actually, even though we might not use it, I'm just going to select all of these and parent them to this shape layer. So that if, for example, we go ahead and want to animate the size later, we can animate it all at once rather than having to do each one individually. So I'll just change that back to 100%. Okay, so I want to add a few bits. So if we go under our control shape layer that we've added, click contents. Well, actually, we don't need to click it. We just click add here, and we're going to add a stroke. So the stroke isn't actually doing anything, but we're going to be using this color later. And the next thing we need is a trim path. So we do the add again and click trim paths. So these are the two things we're going to be using to control all of these other layers. Now, if we go down into our first vector layer, now this is going to be a little bit tedious, so I'm going to run through this real quick. I might even speed it up in the video, but I'll show you how to do it for the first one, and then you'll just need to go through and do it for each one. So if we're going down to our contents, go to our stroke, and grab our pick whip, which is this kind of spiral looking icon next to our color, and we're going to link that to our color on this stroke here. So we'll just grab that and put it onto this one. We can see that's actually changed color, and just so we can actually see what we're doing, I'm going to change this to a bright red. There we go. So now we've got this color linked to our control layer color. So we can now collapse that and collapse that stroke. And we now need to go to our contents on our second option, vector even, and add a trim path. This trim path we want to link to our trim paths in our control layer. So we're going to do our start to our start, our end to our end, And even though we're probably not going to use the offset, I'm going to do that just so they're linked. And the same with the trim multiple shapes, to add trim multiple shapes, just because this might save us some time in the long run. Actually, we don't need to do the trim multiple shapes as it won't link anyway. So it's just these three. And you can see they go red when they're linked. So that's perfect. So what we want to do next is, this will be our main time saver now. So we don't have to do that step for every single one of these, is we're going to select our stroke, select our trim path by holding down Command or Control if you're on Windows. So we've got both selected, and we're then going to right click. Actually, we're not, we're just going to press Command C or Control C to copy those, and then we're going to paste them inside the contents and inside the vector of all our other shapes. So we just need to delete that stroke 1, so our stroke 2 is there, and we can see that actually this is already linked because it's a copy of the one above, and same for our trim paths, we can see that's already linked as well. So you can see it's gone red here, so we know it's worked. And if we just go to our trim paths on our control shape layer, we can grab this and we can see, okay, that's now doing exactly what we want across multiple layers. So that's our time saver. So I'm just going to go and run through and do that on for each vector, and then I'll collapse it when I know I've done it. So those are done. So we're on 4, span vector, select our vector, paste by pressing Command V, delete our additional stroke because we don't need it anymore. For number 5. And just keep going like that. And we can see each time we've done it, it updates it here, which is nice, so we know it's working. Like I said, if you were to do this in Illustrator, it actually combines all the shape layers under one, all the paths, sorry, under one shape layer. So you only have to do this once rather than having to do it each time. I've spent quite a few hours trying to figure out a quicker way of doing this using Figma, but I've not figured it out yet. So if anyone does know a quicker way, do let me know. That'd be hugely helpful to share with everyone, and to save me a load of time as well. So most of your illustrations won't actually have this many paths probably. So this is kind of a tedious one, but hopefully you'll agree that the end result's pretty cool. There we go, we are done. So that was really tedious, I'm sure, but now we can control all of them from one place, so it's actually a big time saver in the long run. So what I'm going to do is I'm now going to clear that, and I'm going to select all of these, and we're only going to work with this top shape layer. So what I'm going to do is select these, make them all hideable, and then I'm just going to hide them so they disappear, so we don't actually need to see those anymore. And I've just accidentally added an additional shape, I think. There we go. So what we can do now is we can start our animation. So the first thing I want to do is I'm actually going to add a background layer to this, so I'm just going to do that now, and that is I'm just going to duplicate this one by pressing Command D, and I'm going to call this comp background. I'm then going to change the color of the background to a light gray, like so. And then I'm going to create a new comp from selection. So we've got, just rename that main comp. So we know this is our actual main composition that we're going to be using for the final export. We can see we've got our background in there, and this background's not going to have any animation. We're just going to be using that for a fixed color. And then we're going to be adding our Touch ID one on top. And this is the one we're actually going to animate. So what we're going to do is head back into our Touch ID composition. And using our control shape layer, we are going to start, we're going to set the end to 0. And then, just for the sake of it, I'm just going to click the stopwatch there, and over a second, I'm going to say it's going to go to 100%, like so. And then we're going to just have a quick look at that. So this is our animation here, and then back at 2 seconds, I'm going to put it back to 0. There we go. And then I'm just going to shorten this composition to 2 seconds. So that's our full animation, and then we're just going to press the space bar and to watch that animate. So that's pretty cool. I think we need to actually pause the animation for a few seconds or a little while when it's complete. So to do that, I'm just going to pause it. I'm going to drag this keyframe to the 40 frames, and then I'm going to copy and paste it, and at whatever frame that is, at 1 second 20, I'm going to paste it there. So we've got nothing happening between these two keyframes, and then we can see we've got a nice transition in, and then a pause, and then a transition out. So that's pretty cool. If we go back to our main comp, we can now see that in action. So we can see it grows over the gray and then fills. But we can see that actually this main comp is slightly too long, and we need to make this also 2 seconds. There we go. So now we should have a really nice animation. Perfect. So we could leave it there, but why not add a little bit of extra polish by adding some curves in? So we can do that either using a plugin that I love to use for my curves, or we can go to the graph editor here, and we can go and add an easy ease on these ones. And then we're going to select these and add an easy ease here. So we can see it should have a nicer transition where it kind of eases in and eases out, and then it's quite linear in the middle. We could play around with this curve a bit, not that one. So we could say make it an ease in, and just let the RAM render, and then we'll be able to see it once that's rendered the first time. There we go. So it starts off nice and slow, and then it ramps up real quick. I think you can probably agree that that doesn't look as good. So I'm just going to undo that and go back to our easy ease, which I think looks really nice. And I think that's probably good, actually, for the purpose of this video. You can tweak these curves how you like, but I think this works for me. So I'm going to go back to our normal keyframe editor, and what I want to do is I want to change that pink to something a bit nicer. So if I go back to my Figma file, and I want to grab this Iris 100, I'm just going to copy that color code, come back into After Effects, click the color here, and then paste it in. There we go. So now we've got this nicer iris color, or lavender color, whatever you want to call it. And I think that's much nicer. So the next step, and this is pretty close to the end of what we're going to be doing in this video, is we're going to be we're going to be using the LottieFiles plugin to export this as a Lottie file. Now, You won't be able to see, but I'm going to go up to the top of my screen and click Window, and then under Extensions, we'll see the LottieFiles plugin. I'm just going to load that up. It's loaded on a different screen, so I'll just drag it over, and that'll take a little while to load. And I've just got to log in, so I will skip this bit. Okay, there we go. So that was easy. I was already logged in online, so it did it straight away. And we can see all our compositions have appeared in here, and the one we're actually interested in is our main comp. So I'm just going to click the arrow on our main comp, and we're going to get a preview of our animation. So it's at this point we'd find out if there's an issue with the animation. So fortunately, this is zoomed in quite a lot, and I'm not sure how to zoom out. Let's see if there's a way of zooming out. It doesn't seem like there is. But yeah, that looks like it's working fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to save that as a .json file. And if I go into my files, just save this somewhere useful, and I'm going to call this touch ID. And then I'm going to just close that once it's done. You can upload it directly to LottieFiles from here actually. But I've saved it as a JSON file, so I've got that file ready for when I want to do handover to the engineers. And I'm going to go back to Chrome. Oh, I accidentally clicked it. Just wait for that to finish. Okay, so I'm going to head over to LottieFiles.com. And in here, we're going to go to Design and Preview. I'm going to go to my Finder, and I'm going to find that file. Which is in the folder I just created. Here it is. I'm just going to drag that in. That should take a few seconds, and there we go. Our animation is complete. It is a vector file. We can change the background color to show that it is transparent as well. And if we load that up in a bigger view, we can actually prove that it's vector by zooming in and out, and it remains pixel perfect no matter what, because it's vector file. It's not using pixels at all. So you could now install this on your website or your mobile device quite easily. Okay, so that's now our animation complete and exported as a Lottie file. If you want to learn more about LottieFiles, we have a tutorial series on my YouTube channel going into more depth on how to use LottieFiles, how to create them from Figma, and how to animate in After Effects. There's a whole series on that. You can now hand this over to your developer. Just send them the JSON file and link them to, if we just go back to LottieFiles.com, you can use the web player here. So in fact, let's just take a quick look at that. So if we go to code, web player, and just grab our, I think it's the asset link we need. Yeah, the asset link here, paste that in. We've got to clear the first, there we go. So here it is, and this is the code, all you need to embed this onto your web page. So if you stick this inside your HTML, it's good to go. You can hide the controls as well. So if you don't want the controls appearing down there, you can change the autoplay, so you could actually have it on click. And there's so much you can do. If you go to the interactivity guide, which will quickly load now. This is on GitHub. There are loads of things you can do. So you can sync it to your scrolling. Something to do with a container. This one's based on offset. There's probably some with clicks coming up. So this one on hover. So when you hover, it appears. Yeah, and this one's based on your cursor position. So, and this one's based on a click. So with this one, you could have it so that when you sense the Touch ID on your app using the iOS API, you could then render this animation. Or you could use it to signal that the user needs to press their Touch ID. Whatever, really. But I hope this tutorial was useful to you. And let me know if you have any comments in the comments below. And I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thanks for watching.